How can blockchain tech do other things besides for money? And a lot of people use that buzzword, blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. But we wanted to bring to you today 8 different people that are using blockchain tech in 8 different ways. So I'm going to introduce to you François Sonnet in a minute, who's the co-founder of Global SolarChange and the co-founder of ElectriCChain. He's going to present to you in 15 minutes his company and his project. Is he ready? All right, without further ado, François Sonnet.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me? Take that for a yes. So I'm here to demystify a little bit blockchain in the energy sector, with a specific focus on the solar energy, because we're also part of the SolarCoin Foundation. And so if some of you were here at 8 o'clock this morning, you might have heard also about blockchain technology, what it is about. It's all about a database, really. So it's something very easy, a peer-to-peer database, where every participant actually has a copy of what is happening into that database. You have open blockchains, you have closed blockchains, you have side chains as well. A couple of examples about closed blockchains is R3. R3 is, for example, specifically oriented towards the finance domain, so a lot of banks are working into this consortium, and they use this private blockchain to exchange information, proprietary information for clearing, settlement, and custody. In our case, I'm here to explain more on into the energy sector. As you might have heard, we're opposed to centralized. What we're doing with blockchain is more decentralized and slowly going towards distributed. As you see, you have blockchain version 1.0, which would be the Bitcoin blockchain, for example. You have version 2.0, smart contracts applications with Ethereum, for example. And you also have more distributed blockchains, which would be the best case IOTA in this case. This is about to tangle. I'll get to it a bit later as well, because we also use this. So really specifically about different companies working into the energy sector, I'd like to present the most known project, which is the Brooklyn microgrid. We're going to hear a lot about blockchain in the energy sector for microgrid applications, peer-to-peer energy trading, as well as nanogrids, and in the case of SolarCoin, incentivizing for more solar power uptake. What the Brooklyn microgrid is about, it's really about getting people to exchange energy into the same grid. So if you're a producer on one side of the street, then you can actually feed into a closed grid or even an open grid. The grid can actually be connected to the rest of, the grid, the main grid, and exchange this energy to someone else who is part of the same grid. This is really what Brooklyn microgrid is doing. LO3 is also working on that specific point. Another company, very interesting, UK-based, is Electron. This is more about the gas market. So in this case, what they're especially trying to do is smart grid technologies for the gas market and delivering information for these companies then. LO3 Energy, also grid singularity, which you may have heard of. Grid singularity is based in Vienna, not too far away from here. And what they do is they work with utilities to enable, smart contracts and adding into that artificial intelligence onto a data logger so that you can also exchange energy by peer-to-peer. Again, in this case, in the case of LO3, it's really about a grid. It's the transactive grid. It's the Brooklyn microgrid. We've just explained a little bit about that. In the case of grid singularity, again, it's more focused towards peer-to-peer energy transfer and exchanging, exchanging energy between a producer and another prosumer, so another producer or a consumer in this case. Another very interesting project is the IDEA Collab. IDEO is quite interesting because it really regroups a lot of companies, developers alike, who want to participate into the same network, and they have different ideas to develop. One of them is, again, a data logger, which they're working on, also with artificial intelligence. So again, you're going to hear a lot about microgrids, peer-to-peer energy transfer with these different companies. And I'd say the most successful company with peer-to-peer energy transfer is PowerLedger. This is an Australian-based company. What they really do, they really enable companies or people who produce solar power to actively use the same grid, and if they produce too much energy, feed the grid and exchange this surplus of energy to someone else who is working with the same grid. Another interesting application, again, microgrids. On a closed grid in this case, it's General Electric, which was working with the French grid operator Enedis. In France, blockchain, I would say, is pretty big. It's getting big, at least, especially in the energy sector. And so what you see over there is participating prosumers, again, feeding the energy into this grid. And again, these people, consumers who are using this electricity. Around that, obviously, you have digital currency applications. The MIT is probably the most compelling story behind digital currency applications, because what they are trying to do is applying this microgrid and nanogrid solutions to developing nations. They have a project in Barbados, for example, again applying blockchain for microgrids then. And with the ElectriCChain, we also do that. ElectriCChain is also the company which I represent. We're based out of Andorra. And what we also do, we also stimulate microgrids and exchanging energy through this microgrid inside for developing nations. We have a project in Cameroon, running in Cameroon already, one in Bangladesh as well, just starting. Chain of Things, another very interesting company out there. This is more focused onto the security aspect, because obviously when you have a lot of people participating within the same database, you also have to make sure that it is secure, especially in the case of IoT. So they're really focused on key security aspects, I would say, of the blockchain. So as I mentioned, and as you have heard a lot of applications are about microgrids, nanogrids participating with the existing grid. And obviously a lot of companies are saying, well, what's in there for us? So the utility model, what is going to happen with the utility model? It's actually these different prosumers are actually going to be part of the existing model, and they're actually going to be using the existing model. So the utilities actually have a new business model with these, well, prosumers, so people producing their own energy. And so, again, when using artificial intelligence to data loggers, what we can do is predict better the energy which is going to be produced, the energy which is going to be fed into the grid, so that these utilities can better make use of the energy onto the grids. Again, from our side, we come with SolarCoin as a way to incentivize these prosumers. Again, in the peer-to-peer energy model and energy trading. Specifically, when we talk about nanogrid solutions for developing nations, you can also have a 50-watt peak solar installation producing its own energy and feeding it into a mini grid for people to make use on the other side of the village. As long as there's a grid to doing that. And again, what artificial intelligence in there actually enables is to predict, pre-predict this production being fed, as well as making use of the batteries, so the stock, I would say, in there. Again, working a lot with grid singularity, specifically on this model, and using, existing technologies around there. One of them is a smart data logger from SMAPI. And I like to focus especially on the solar industry. Solar is going to be very big. It's already very big, especially in Germany, countries like Germany, you have 1.5 million solar installations here in Germany, out of 7 out in the world. But the International Energy Agency is looking at having 200 million solar installations plugged to the grid, so for residential solar installations, in the next 20 to 25 years. It's a matter of pollution, that's one thing, but it's also a matter of energy. And most of the places where you're going to see these, well, this energy, the large energy uptake, is in developing nations such as Africa, Asia, and South America. These are also places where you have a lot of sunshine and where you don't have any infrastructure established yet. So developing microgrids in these regions is actually, and the peer-to-peer energy model is also going to be very interesting for these countries to get into. That's 5,000 gigawatts of solar power capacity. And to put that in comparison, today we're at 300 gigawatt. That represents about 500 nuclear power plants, nuclear reactors actually. So it's already big, but we have to get further away from that. With the ElectriCChain, what we're also developing is data loggers. So we actually embed blockchain technology into these data loggers. On one hand, to incentivize people to produce solar energy, but on top of that, with SolarCoin, sorry, but on top of that, also adding different blockchains into it. So we're going to end up with a data logger with several layers of blockchains in there. One of the examples we've tested this, I demonstrated this a year ago with a Raspberry Pi. I have a short video here which I'd like to show to you. And what it does, it's automatically logged to the blockchain, publishes from your solar installation directly to the blockchain. You record the data, obviously, but then you also get the coins, the solar coins, granted to your SolarCoin wallet. Now, my excuse here, the thing is I wanted to do this live. But in this case, I ended up doing it last night and recording it. So sorry for the big, the big banner in the middle there. And obviously, because it's nighttime, you don't really generate power. So what we're going to demonstrate here is actually having the SolarCoin wallet logged to the solar installation, but we won't really see who's producing the real production of it. That said, what you can see here is a Raspberry Pi in function, and what the Raspberry Pi is doing, it replicates, it's a mini computer, it's a $10 worth computer. We have the system information, so this is actually a solar installation which is in the UK, producing about 4 kilowatt peak installation, information about the system, in-phase inverter. And what we're going to do is we're going to harvest the information from this inverter, use it to publish directly to the blockchain and grant solar coins then. This means that from this case scenario, this very easy case scenario, we can actually use the language layer from this Raspberry Pi and put it onto any data logger or any inverter, which also means that any inverter companies can actually start producing solar coins as a way to incentivize people to produce solar energy. Now, as you can see, short quick back there on the information of the SolarCoin wallet. What we're going to see here is the block count. And so specifically, the blockchain is adding blocks further and further. And what we're going to see here is the block count at 1,600,000 and something. We're using proof of stake algorithm, so which means we're much greener than the Bitcoin model. We actually use 5%, between 5 and 7% of what Bitcoin is using with their servers. And so using the SolarCoin Blockchain Explorer, you can actually receive information on the specific solar installation being granted coins. So every block will actually be used as a database, and you can actually see who has produced. Now, as I mentioned, we don't have a hash information for that, so because it was nighttime, we didn't really produce information, but otherwise it would actually be into this hash in there, and you would see a text appear, I have produced X kilowatt hours of solar energy. And so again, this is connected to the SolarCoin blockchain. The solar coins are granted directly to your SolarCoin wallet address, and you can monetize these with Bitcoin, for example. Thank you very much, Jan and Uli, for the video. So specifically on that, this is the first version of the data logger. The incentivizing, because the aim is really to help prosumers deliver energy to the grid and incentivize them for doing that. But we're also adding Ethereum to this data logger so that we can also use smart contract applications, peer-to-peer, think about peer-to-peer for that. And IOTA. IOTA is quite interesting because it's a blockchain version 3.0. It's a blockchain without being a blockchain. It doesn't really have the weight of the blockchain. And so what it means is that it's going to authorize more fluid information without having too many blocks being added up. The information can actually be, instead of being published every minute, like it is the case with the SolarCoin blockchain, IOTA actually enables you to fluidify the information and get it on a quasi-live basis. Very interesting for monitoring companies, obviously, because they can actually monitor solar power on a more live basis. Now, as I was mentioning the data logger, obviously this is a $10 piece of equipment with a Raspberry Pi. Anybody can do that. Anybody can use the Raspberry Pi and plug it to his existing solar installation, but it's still a tech stuff. And so obviously a lot of people right now don't know what blockchain technology is about. They don't know what a Raspberry Pi is either. And so obviously they don't want to fiddle with that. And so another way around using SolarCoin is simply by registering to the SolarCoin website and providing grid documentation proving the existence of your solar installation, and we will hand out solar coins to your SolarCoin wallet. These solar coins are directly monetized with the Luke platform, for example. That's one of our trading platforms. And so Luke will allow you to trade solar coins for Swiss francs, euros, and the like. Then. I'd like to finish with a couple of recognitions or prizes, I would say. We were presenting at COP22 in Marrakesh, and we won actually an award over there for the nanogrid solution. So this is existent, I would say, and this is being trial tested. We've been recognized as SolarCoin as an incentive tool. We've been recognized by IRENA, so the International Renewable Energy Agency, which recognizes SolarCoin as a reward mechanism. And I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if I'm still in time, yeah? Cool. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet. So as far as I understand, you can essentially, instead of mining for Bitcoin like you were saying with proof of work, you are taking your energy, whether you have a solar panels or even a wind farm, and you can generate these solar coins from that. And I met someone earlier in the week who's doing something similar. Mm-hmm. But the next step, how can we make these coins redeemable for the energy directly? Because for a true market to exist, we need supply and demand. These solar coins or any other tokens that you do on your network, the ability for someone to be able to generate tokens and earn money for their extra energy that they have, and then use those coins to actually buy more energy, you have a completely closed cycle. You have a whole economy based around energy. And it seems like you're onto that, and that's what you're doing, which is amazing because you're removing these large energy companies that charge us a lot of money for energy, and you're not only creating the ability for someone to generate money, but also to use that money, those same tokens, to then go and buy more energy. You're creating this whole cycle. Tell me more about how the blockchain gets into this. What's the difference between I'm from Brooklyn, so it's actually, I love that idea. And of course, in Park Slope, where they would do that, it's all the hipsters and everything.
Sure.
But why not just use like an Excel spreadsheet? What is the blockchain giving us that no other technology has able to give us before?
Sure, that's a great question. Yeah, well, thank you. I suppose they told you to ask that question.
They did.
So blockchain is really about transparency, and this is what it's all about. And so what blockchain actually allows you is it allows everybody to participate into this network, but also seeing who is participating into this network and validating the information of everybody participating into this network. So very simple tool, very effective tool as well, because it takes out the middleman. It takes out also all the opacity behind all the transactions. Now with SolarCoin, what we are doing is really about incentivizing, so it's a monetary aspect to it, but you can also see it as data, so publishing information to this open blockchain and using this open blockchain for projects which you may have. If you do have any projects like that, we invite you to the ElectriCChain and to discuss with that. But the thing is, blockchain is really there so that anybody can actually produce this energy and deliver it to the grid. It's a billing mechanism, if you want. It's not really about the electron which is going to be fed into the grid by your solar installation and being used maybe 100 kilometers away, or more likely, as it is the case, the electron goes to the closest place of consumption, so probably your neighbor. That neighbor is not really going to bill you for that electron. We're not tagging that electron. What is happening with peer-to-peer energy, for example, or microgrids again, the billing, what the blockchain is about, it's the billing mechanism. And so this billing mechanism actually allows you to keep track of the amount of energy which you have produced, which you are feeding into the grid, and someone else is also using this blockchain to say, hey, I need this energy, I'm going to have a partial match, for example, but I know exactly who is using what, when, and where.
Using the blockchain, you can find the best source of energy that's the cheapest possible. You can be competitive closest to you. Kind of like how Spotify works when you're streaming music from someone else who's close to you instead of like downloading music from a central server in a way.
Correct.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We wish a lot of success for the Brooklyn microgrid as well. We're obviously very interested in seeing microgrids being developed over there. Yeah. And again, from the aspect of SolarCoin, the idea is more about incentivizing these prosumers, because obviously a lot of people say, hey, our world functions well so far, I mean, more or less. But in this case, blockchain is really about helping these people do another step forward into getting their solar. I see a question over there. Do we have time
for? Go for it.
Sure. It is open source, yeah.
Great question.
Yeah. And so anybody can participate with the SolarCoin blockchain. It's an open source. It's an open blockchain. So we come in as an additional tool to existing companies. You think about the companies which I presented here, Grid Singularity, for example, very important in there. LO3, for example, very important as well. Power Ledger as well. We actually help those companies also sell their products, because you could think about SolarCoin as being the last block to the chain, or the first block to the chain. We're here more as B2C, I would say, and as a win-win solution for everybody. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for presenting.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
That was awesome. Keep up the good work. That's energy on the blockchain.
Well, you need to.
It's really wonderful, because people will say, well, why not do it on the Bitcoin blockchain? But obviously, you need a whole new, instead of proof of work, you're doing proof of stake, and your whole optimized blockchain yourself, creating a closed loop. It's really